I would like to call to order the regular board meeting of the Phelan Piñon Hills Community Services District. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And let it be noted that all directors are present except for Director Kuyava. And we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Mr. Bartz, are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda tonight.
I'll move the agenda.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? None opposed, motion passed. And then we will move on to public comments. And under this item, any member of the public wishing to directly address the board on any item of interest that may or may not be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, but not listed on the agenda, may do so at this time. And Mrs. Sevi, are there any members of the public here for public comment?
I believe we have one gentleman in the audience. If you could come to the podium, please.
Hi.
Hello, sir.
Wow, it's been a long time since I used to do these from your side. And I don't know if everybody knows me or if anybody knows me, but I'm Don Slater. I was the chair of the Piñon Hills MAC and vice chair for 10 years. Much of what you see in this town, I did. My fingerprints are all over this place. From Highway 138 to Duncan Road to specifically the light at Oasis in 138. They didn't want to do that. I waited till the last meeting. The signs saying don't ban your pet, it's against the law. I got those. Saw them up at Arrowhead, said we need them. Lots of things. For 10 years I put my love into this place. The lights at Duncan and Sheep Creek, that was beautiful. Bob Kettleman and I decided to pursue that, and we got those put in and made all the difference in the world, brought the collisions down. There was no stop sign at that time, made it obvious to people where they were. I recommend those. It's a cheap way to get lighting. The electric company charges a set amount per month for the use of those lights, and they replace them, service them. I recommend them for every corner that we can get them on, and we might see fewer people die. Dying was a big deal to me. That was my most important thing other than trash. And that brings me to why I'm here. Mike Adams and Al Morissette, Charlie Johnson, and myself, Ken Anderson to some extent, Carolyn McNamara. Of course, we didn't do a whole lot of talking. It wasn't our job to be happy with each other. But we all got together and decided that we had to create you guys. Good part of the reason that this board was created was Victorville was trying to take over our water district. Don knows all about that because his water district was lost to Victorville, and that was one hell of a battle. Bill Postmus took me aside in an elevator, said, Don, we have to win that battle because they're coming after you next. So we created you guys to get influence over our community and stop Victorville where they belonged, back where they were. So the other reason was we weren't happy with how much we were being charged by Special District. The tractors were disappearing and ending up out in the middle of the desert at some other community and never brought back. People were having to go track them down and get them to come and get them. so many things like that. And then special districts was very rude to people. And so we wanted to create our own, and we did. Charlie did a lot of the work, but we all had our input and stuff. But the main thing that we all wanted was to have a very frugally run district. This isn't a rich community. These people, first thing I was told when I came on the MAC board is that half the people in your community, Don, live in mobile homes or in truck campers that are on the ground, and they go to school barefoot. And you need to keep them in mind with everything you do. It's still that way, or worse now. And I'm telling you guys the same thing, that quite possibly nice, beautiful buildings for everybody to work in maybe is better for the future if you're having to raise the prices so much to be able to get to where you can build it. It just seems that every chance you guys get to raise a rate, whether it be because you're changing the tiers so that we get into the higher tiers earlier, or whether it's just a rate raise, or whether, and I've spoken with Don about this, about the Chromium 6 thing. That was a dirty trick as far as I'm concerned. A lot of other people, they asked me about it. You know, that was temporary. You told us it would be temporary just to meet the requirements that the state was forcing on you. Well, those requirements are long over. And I asked Don, and he said that, well, we still have work to do on it, and we still have other work for those people to do. And that's fine and dandy. Then you need to turn them into real on the books employees. I know they probably are exactly on the books employees, but you need to remove the extra fee. That fee is really infuriating a lot of people. And I hate to say it, but a lot of people talk to me. They haven't forgotten me, that I stood in front of 500 people talking about 138 and breaking down. Not my best moment, but it was hard to face. And other times I had to speak to them and stuff. But they know I love the community, and they know that eventually they'll get me to say something. I appreciate if you would give me more than 5 minutes. It's probably going to take more, but I never cut anybody off the whole time I was ever on that. So try to see what you can do about taking the fee off, because we all know that Chromium 6 was changed. You know, and so it looks kind of silly when you're still charging it. It really does. And people notice. These are the one thing, there are maybe a lot of poor people up here, but don't even begin to assume that they're dumb. They're some of the brightest people I've met anywhere. And I went and lived in San Clemente for 7 years after the MAC board was done, and I wanted to stay at the beach for a while. And mostly they're just arrogant. And or criminals. There was a change in the billing cycle at one point. We used to be a 2-month billing cycle. Changed it to a 1-month billing cycle. And it seemed to me, and I can only go on perceptions, I am not going to go through and dig everything out. But my wife remembers everything, and she functions well as my memory, especially after that accident. And I took a good hit to the head. But the bills, the change, the set fees didn't seem to get cut in half at the time that you created 2 bills out of 1. And I didn't think that was very fair either. At that time, And I would have been here years ago, but April 25th, but it'll be 3 years this coming April. I barely lived. We rolled like 5 times, and it was so unfair after doing that I nearly get killed on 18. And we talked, and we were working on trying to get 18, and we got some plans done on it. But I sure got a better idea what all the people I was fighting for were going through. But we're still alive, and I can walk kind of. My lower leg below my knee was like there was explosives inside my bones, 1,000 pieces. They rebuilt me. I'm a lot of titanium down there. But anyway, I really think that you guys need to look back at that change when you changed from the 2-month bill to the 1-month bill. And at least take notice of it. Notice what you're doing and how it affects things and stuff. Because when you have so many times that the rates are going up from the chromium 6 to the changing of the oftenness of the bill to the changing tiers to the changing rates, you're building a layer upon a layer, and you're using percentages to create your next layer, and it just gets high. And I am really blown away at how expensive it's gotten, and I'm not alone, once again. And so that's that part. I know you were talking about a pipeline from El Mirage up to Phelan. Did you build that?
No, we were able to, and what I'd love to do too, come in and spend a couple hours with me. I would like to relive that whole chromium 6 ordeal with you, but we found ways that we're able to do that by changing the pumping habits of the wells and adding additional wells in areas that didn't have chromium 6 to avoid the cost of that. And
When I spoke with several of your people who know wells, your wells, and I trust me. I know that this is going to bum your life that I'm even bringing it up, because it certainly would be a good show for the community and good for morale, and that people would feel like they're in a place and stuff. How much is that building going to cost? The new building?
the estimates for the building are somewhere in the range of $12 million. But it's not just it's more to it than the building. There's also the improvements off-site, on-site. And some of it will be for the parks too, kind of the first step of the parks.
So maybe think about how do we really need this building right now? Is it really necessary? We're coming into a recession. I'm pretty sure that every one of you knows that we're coming into a recession. And everybody's going to get hit really hard. And to build that building is going to cost everybody money, you know, unless you get in really good with the Fed, you're not going to get free money. They just print it. Oh, good. Well, that helps a little. Just think about it. How can we do this in a more frugal manner? I know Mike Adams, and I don't know if any of you guys know Mike Adams. Does anybody here know Mike Adams? Okay. Mike was the chairman of the water board, a very good man and somebody who I admired greatly. And he unfortunately died before his term was up, slipped and fell on ice and popped his arteries and knocked him out. I spoke at his funeral, for Piñon Hills, and that was tough to do. He was a very frugal man, and he was the one that was really pointing to trying to keep things in where we could. Though Mike was very pro parks, and so was Al, and so am I. It's a beautiful park you guys have designed, Just try to hammer on the prices if you can, Whatever you can save, $1 saved is worth probably 3 earned, because they don't tax our savings yet, but they're going to work on that, especially if we vote wrong. But it's a beautiful park, and I want to commend you on that. That's good work.
Mr. Bartz has offered to meet with you if you'd like to come in at a later date and talk to him on some of these issues.
Yes, I
further
will.
detail. Okay.
Yes. Just keep always in mind that the district belongs to the people. On trash, the pricing, I imagine that the expenses are going through the roof with the separating, and the separating is really difficult, and there's a lot of growing pains on that and stuff. One thing I want to point out is you put together a pretty ambitious charging set of things you're going to charge for on the back of the sheet, and charging for stolen cans or broken cans. Well, we're not responsible if somebody steals our cans, and the cans don't belong to us, and it's part of the trash company's job to replace their equipment. That's my opinion. As far as the breakage goes, every time I see them empty the trash, they bang the hell out of those cans, and that's what's breaking the lids. Because I know I didn't break my lids, and I've had 3 of them break. So I don't think it's fair to charge for us to maintain trash company or trash, whatever you guys call it, equipment. We just put our trash in it in bags or boxes and try to do the right thing now. Probably the thing that concerns me the most about the new, and this is my last thing, about the new trash situation. Now, I created the Tri-Community Cleanup the first night when we started up the MAC boards again, or re-peopled the MAC board. And Sandy Hemingway jumped right on it, and we both worked it. We created the cleanup, and we worked getting the tires so that they could go places and set all of that up. And I'm particularly proud of it because it made a big difference. At last I heard 48,000 tires. Of course, that's old. That was when I was in, or at the end of me being in. And Al told me a lot of tons of trash. I don't remember the number. And I'm so happy that it's been continued. My concern is that on Facebook and other people, when they get frustrated with the sorting, and they're told they're going to get fined, their attitude is, if I get fined, I'm just going to start throwing my trash in the desert. And that's going to happen. These people are cantankerous. They really are. So we need to plan for that. And I always thought there should be somebody who goes around doing what the High Desert Keeper does. But he's doing that as a charity. So, but I think that you need to look at maybe adding a truck or two and a couple people per truck. Once this gets going and we see if we're going to get a high increase in dump trash, that will go around and pick up what's happening. Otherwise, 2 years from now, we're going to be back where we were when I started. And trash is just disgusting. So thank you for listening to me. And I want to say I really do appreciate your work. I know how hard it is. I remember sitting on the top of the hill in my Jeep watching the 138 Sheep Creek turn off for hours on end, trying to figure out how to stop the carnage and so many other things. And I know that you guys are doing stuff on your own that's just as intensive. And keep going. Eventually, it's been 14 years since we were disbanded. Down the road, this will be the best thing you ever did. This is when you made the world a better place. And you can look around and see your accomplishments and feel good. And you can feel like I did something that's going to outlive me. And not everybody gets to feel that, except maybe their children. But to feel it on as great of a scale as you guys get to, you'll appreciate that. I do. It means a lot to me.
Well, thank you for your comments and everything that you've done for the community for years on end.
I keep thinking you're over there.
I'm right here.
Where is he?
But thank you for all the hard work you've done in the community, and thank you for your comments tonight, sir.
Great.
And Don-
Keep it on. We're just going to build on one foundation after another,
Yeah, please come in. I got
Yeah.
a lot of things to talk to you about. I want to walk you through the process that we went through on many things.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of processes. I'm going to sit down and listen to you for a little bit.
Okay. Are there any?
I'm almost over the PTSD too. I had a dream the other night that I was getting into a 50-car accident on the highway though.
I was supposed to make the announcement that the FP5 and proposed Measure W meeting was improperly scheduled. It is February 2nd at 6 p.m., not tonight. So if there's anybody here for that, that meeting is to be held February 2nd at 6 p.m. Are there any other public speakers in the audience? Nope.
You're safe.
Ms. Sevi, are there any representatives here for community reports?
Yes, we have Victor Hernandez with Senator Rosalisi Ochoa Bogue's office, and we also have Samuel Shoup with the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. Mr. Hernandez?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Victor Hernandez from the Office of State Senator Ochoa Bogue, and I'm here just to provide a brief legislative update for everyone. As mentioned last meeting, the legislature reconvened on Wednesday, January 3rd for the 2024 session of the legislative term. And some key dates in the week ahead include Wednesday, January 31st. That's the last day for some of these two-year bills that were introduced during the first year of the term to pass out of their House of Origin. So it originated Assembly or Senate. Also, Friday, February 16th will be the last day for all of the members of the legislature to introduce new legislation. Yesterday, the senator actually introduced, or rather 2 days ago, the senator introduced the first bill of her 2024 legislative package, which is SB 943. SB 943 would require the California Department of Human Resources to waive the civil service degree, so the bachelor's degree requirement for veterans who ranked at the E6 pay grade classification or higher for 2 or more years. It's supported by multiple statewide veterans groups. So we'll continue to keep the community posted about all of the action going on throughout the duration of the legislative session. And then, of course, if anybody has or would like to provide legislative feedback or has any issues with state agencies, they can always feel free to visit our website, and we'll be able to tend to you and review your case. Or you can always reach our office at 909-335-0271. So thanks again, everyone, and I hope everyone has a great evening.
Thank you for your comments. And we have one more representative.
Yes, Mr. Shoup?
Good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. Apologies for having missed the last few meetings. I try to be here as often as I can. Just a little update for everybody, nothing too extreme. I wanted to bring up a board item that was passed yesterday by the Board of Supervisors unanimously during consent. This is a contract approval to provide homeless services with the new wellness center in Victorville. This is intended to help individuals who have been residing in the Mojave River riverbed and other nearby encampments. We're very excited about this. It's going to assist not just within the city limits of Victorville, but people throughout the high desert. So we're happy to see centers like this popping up and more progress being made on this issue. So that was approved yesterday unanimously. And a bit more housekeeping countywide. Our Director of Public Works, Brendan Biggs, who I'm sure many of you have worked with before, recently retired this past month. We're very excited for him. Well deserved. He was recognized yesterday's board meeting. I believe 31 years of service with the county. The last several as director of the department. So we're very excited for him. Sad to see him go. And the new director was just promoted as the assistant director, Noel Castillo. Excuse me. With whom our office has worked closely before. We're very excited about that, to see him taking on this role. Speaking of public works, we do want to keep promoting the See Click Fix app and website that the County Public Works Department uses. That's the word See, S-E-E, Click Fix. It can be found at that, searching that with the Public Works Department. There's also an app you can download as well. It's a great resource. Anyone sees any potholes, road repair issues, anything of that nature, code enforcement, trashed by the side of the road, that type of thing. Snap a quick picture of it. You can upload it there, say what the issue is. And we've been very happy to see that Public Works is very quick getting to those to make sure we're taking care of the communities as much as possible in the unincorporated areas. And anything else of that nature, Public Works or other county department related, come up. If you're having any issues with the department, not hearing back, or see something that needs to be fixed or worked on, reach out to me directly. My contact information can be provided to whomever needs it, and we're always happy to help whenever possible. And with that, if there's any questions from the board, that's all I have for you.
Any questions? I would just like to say congratulations to Brendan on his retirement and congratulations to Noel on his promotion.
I'll pass it along.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Does anyone have any consent items they would like to pull? And if not, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? None opposed. Motion passed. There were no matters removed, no presentations and appointments tonight, and continued and new agenda items. Mr. Bartz?
Thank you. The first item we have, item 6A, is the auditing services for the district. And this did go to the committee yesterday for discussion. And you have about 200 pages of information available to you for the people who presented proposals for doing the audits. I guess I'll turn it back over to the board or to the committee to discuss what their recommendation was.
The Finance Committee did review it yesterday in detail, and we went ahead and we'd like to recommend to the board that we move forward with C.J. Brown and Company for the audit on the proposals. So we thoroughly went through it, and if you guys have any comments, I'd like to hear them.
I like the fact that they have so many other CSDs they already handle, so they understand them. I like seeing that detail.
Yes, they've done work for the district in the past. They're familiar with where to find the files. We've had no issues with them. They've done a good job. And as part of the discussion on how to proceed with this would be for the board to make a motion to engage with VDEC. I'm sorry, Brown and Associates. Name change.
I move that we associate with CJ Brown and Company.
Yes.
Yes, I'll move that.
Okay. So the motion is to move forward with C.J. Brown and Company and direct staff to execute any agreements necessary for that. Do we have a second on the motion?
Excuse me, I'll second the motion.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say, none opposed. Motion passed. All right, 6B, Mr. Bart's update on solid waste program implementation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Sevi is going to handle this item.
So very brief tonight, since we had a comprehensive presentation last meeting. We are almost at 3,000 applications, so we should hit that mark this week. And I did confirm with the hauler just now, we don't charge for replacement broken barrels. They never.
They said not yet.
Yeah.
They said CRR won't charge.
Depending on who you talk to, but we've never charged anybody for a replacement barrel, broken barrel.
That's on your paper for you guys, not to be done.
And that's all I have to report for solid waste right now. If you want to see the presentation from the last meeting, it's up on the website.
Good. And we will move on to item 6C, Mr. Bart's Phelan Civic Center and Park Expansion Projects.
Thank you, Mr. President. George is going to handle this item.
Thank you, Mr. Parts. Just an update. We had our kickoff meeting with FEMA and Cal OES, as well with the environmental consultant, Liburn, and the Wallace Group. The meeting was to establish guidelines for completing the NEPA study for the project, as for the Civic Center. And then also, as well, we kind of put together a coordination schedule or for future meetings and updates with FEMA and Cal OES. Liburn, are the engineer for the CEQA and preparing the NEPA, should have a proposal for that tomorrow, and we may end up bringing this to the board for approval at the next board meeting on the 7th. There is a 3-month anticipation process to complete the NEPA, as well as a 45-day federal public notice that's required. So we're looking at completion and adoption of the document by late April. With that being said, in the agenda item, there is a schedule, and this was prior to our meeting with FEMA. That schedule that's attached kind of gives you an idea of where we are landing as far as advertising for the bids for the project, which is late April, early May. Yeah.
Could you expand the acronym
Sure.
so that the public knows what we're talking about? NEPA, for instance.
Yeah, so the Cal OES is the California Office of Emergency Services, and that's who we're working with currently. That was handed over from FEMA, and FEMA is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and they're part of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So it kind of started with FEMA. It was handed over to Cal OES to manage the funding, the $2 million funding for the Civic Center, the emergency response, we call it.
So this is the emergency response portion of the construction of the building.
Yes, yes. And Learborn did ask, who completed the CEQA for the project, asked a lot of questions on
The CEQA,
the CEQA. The CEQA is the California Environmental Protection Act.
okay, just want to,
And yeah, and that is required for any projects, any new projects. We address biological, agriculture. I mean, just the whole gamut, traffic, noise, and all that. So with the CEQA, I mean, we spoke with Liburn, and she is not really sure what is required. I mean, we're still gathering information on the requirements for NEPA, but she has an idea what that is. Until we dive into the preparation of the document, there might be other conditions that are required, but she's given a worst-case scenario of 3 months. So she says, worst case, you never know working with the government what that's going to look like. But I will have a better understanding what this looks like probably in the first month in preparing the documents. So worst case is 3 months.
Yeah, when we first went into the process for receiving the $2 million grant from the federal government for this, Cal OES is the one in charge of this. They said that NEPA was not required. And it's, I keep wanting to ask them, is this your first project you've ever done? But they did come back, and so now the NEPA is required, part of the process to receive the additional funding for the emergency portion of that. So it's something that they came up with after the fact that we have to perform as part of the project.
I could almost answer Don's question to Cal OES is yes, it is their first project of this sort. So we're learning that. So we did submit the CEQA to Cal OES, probably was in early October, late September, and they said, no, this will work, until FEMA got their hands on it and says, no, this is not going to work. So we would have had a 3-month a head start if we had an idea what that was. But regardless, it's FEMA that's going to review the NEPA for these grant projects in September, and that's their schedule. They don't just jump ahead and review them as they come in. So there's a process to it. Very coordinated meeting with FEMA.
so it's different than the state environmental reports?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
okay,
Very
so
different.
we've done the state environmental report, the CEQA, and now they want and that's being reviewed, I think, right?
The CEQA's been
It's been reviewed
it's
and
been
approved, I
reviewed
thought.
and adopted. We never
Yeah.
completed the process for adoption. So let's just say because it was kind of handled by the county.
Yeah, it's handled by the county.
Yeah.
Okay, so that went through that process, but now we have to do the national environmental.
Absolutely.
Review.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
and that's, again, that's federal. You know, as stringent as California is, we're not that far from completing any additional studies. It's just how it's presented. But that's the environmental engineer to kind of figure out.
I mean, there's only so many environmental issues that one can look at.
And I
So-
think California addresses all of them.
California is the most
Yes.
complicated that I
Yeah.
know of, so.
It is.
And the consultant we're working with has good NEPA experience.
They had to submit qualifications, like a resume, to FEMA to approve that consultant to prepare the NEPA. A great question is there was that submittal of qualifications, and they were approved.
Perfect.
Yes. So again, we've never dealt with NEPA. This is a good experience for us to dive into. We are going to experience this in a different manner. I believe Kim says this is through HUD for our tank 6A, the 1.5 million gallon tank. We are working with another consultant, Tom Dodson, to prepare that. So we have a better understanding of what we expect. And we are so far ahead with that appropriation funding, another federal funding for that project. It's much easier, which it was the opposite. The more complicated project towards the end with an easier project in the front end. We are working with our consultants on the dry utilities, and this is pretty much just the application and preparing the utility drawings, and that's the gas, that's electrical, as well as communications, like charter, whoever that might be. Staff has reviewed and commented on the front-end documents for the inviting bids. That's the RFP, I like to call it. Mr. Kennedy, our legal, likes to call it something else, which is always debatable. But we did send those out to Mr. Kennedy for his review, so legal counsel has that in hand. And we're probably about 3 or 4 months before we even bring it to the board for advertisement and issuing it out. So we're kind of waiting for the NEPA to be completed and adopted before we put it out for bidding. The California Fish and Wildlife, the Western Joshua Tree Conservation Act, we had mentioned that we had rescinded our application for the ITP initially. They adopted a Conservation Act. What that looks like for any trees that are taller than 5 meters, there's a $2,500 cost to mitigation for those trees to be removed. It has nothing to do with relocations. And down to less than 1 meter, like $280 per tree. So we have 164 trees that we're going to be dealing with on the park site. Grading does not impact, the grading for the Civic Center does not impact those trees. This is strictly just for the 14-acre park project. So with that, I'm just going to throw out a general number. If we had 162 trees that were, say on average, there is an average, that average cost was $500. So we're looking at $81,000 at worst case. But there is a plan to relocate and reuse those trees. And that'll just help with the environmental and funding for this project to accept the project, so which we're already there. So we're working with the architects Wallace Group to kind of prepare a plan for a cultural Joshua tree conservation in the park. If we have any questions on the Civic Center, I can move on with the park.
Any questions on the Civic Center? No. I just had one question. SCE, are we moving forward pretty quickly with the plans on that and the relocation of the, I think we had a couple of poles and some other electrical stuff that had to be relocated?
Yeah, so we brought this to the board for approval, and it was a cost to relocate the power poles on the future abandonment of Sarah Road, just east of the existing park. And there are 3 poles, and to remove and to replace it with buried conduit, and that was the intent. And with that just brings the existing park with the future park as one piece. So
Sounds like now we have plenty of time anyways. I was just worried about the timeline, but it sounds like we're all right.
yeah, we're fine. I know we discussed purchasing the transformer and getting that in. So that'll be the first item that the general contractor would address. And actually, we just completed some applications that Mr. Bartz had signed for the anticipated project start. So we're kind of doing the pre-planning. Though we can be completed, we're anticipating in late 2025 with the project, breaking ground in September of 2024.
All right.
And that's our plan.
Thank you. Any further questions on the Civic Center?
You said the NEPA was 90 days, you've got it listed at 180 days.
Yeah, so that schedule was prepared prior to our meeting with FEMA, which was a couple days ago.
Oh, so this
that
this
was in
is
the board
not
packet on
accurate
Friday.
then, right?
Yeah, that was in the board packet on Friday, and it changed when we kind of met with them on Tuesday.
I have
Or
two
Monday.
different ones and they're both different.
I need to provide clarification.
Oh, sorry.
The one in the packet deals with ARPA. The handout was the draft schedule. They're working on a revision. We just wanted to give you a guide, kind of an idea of what's happening with the Civic Center.
So this has to be revised also.
That will be revised. And as it's revised, we'll distribute it.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a Phelan Park Civic Center. With the park, we did receive preliminary conditions from the county back in November. We did have a meeting with the engineer and the consultants to massage the site based on those comments. They should have that completed probably in the next month or so. And now we're moving forward with the improvements, on-site and off-site improvements for the project. And with that being said, I have nothing more to report.
Okay, any questions for George?
Thank you.
Thank you, George. All right, we'll move on to item 7, committee reports and comments. Engineering committee?
Engineering Committee met and reviewed the preliminary CIP expenditures for the budget and progress report on wells and completion of system repairs, and reviewed the, what they call the general manager report that's in the packet. If you have any questions, is there anything else? Oh, she's not here.
Finance committee?
Finance Committee met and reviewed the auditor package, which the board looked at tonight, and had made a recommendation to go with Brown, and the board has done their thing.
Okay. Legislative?
We are scheduled to meet next month.
Okay. And then Parks, Recreation, and Street Lighting?
Yeah, Parks, we met yesterday, and we went over the 10-year capital plan for 24, 25. We reviewed and discussed the Parks and Recreations events for the calendar year. We got an update on the Phelan Park expansion, similar to what we had here just by George a few minutes ago. We got an update on the farmer's market, and we got an update on the teaching garden on those two. Both those programs are successful, and there's a lot of community engagement with those. Of course, the farmer's market suffers when the weather's inclement because it's outside, so they weren't able to have it this week due to the rain, and that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Sounds like a lot of good stuff going on there. Waste and recycling.
We met last week and we went over the capital plan, the 10-year capital plan and budget. We reviewed the solid waste events that are coming up. We went over the compliance order and where we're sitting with it and how we're doing. We watched the presentation from our past board meeting again. There was a gentleman that showed me, I don't remember what he had brought to the table. I know he was just concerned about the rates in general and all that. And we discussed all that. The rates will be looked at again in several months because of the short period that we have to base them on of only a couple weeks. Isn't really enough time to do any rate basing. And that's it. And we meet again on the 21st, I think, of next month.
Thank you very much. And we'll move on to item 8, staff and general managers report. Mr. Bartz.
I have nothing to add tonight.
Okay. And then directors reports. Director Phillips.
On Monday night, I attended the Association of San Bernardino Community Service Districts meeting, and the sheriff presented at it. I'm happy to say he's a strong supporter of our Second Amendment and CCWs, so I'm very happy to see that. He's highly focused on getting off what they call ghost guns, which are guns that have no labeling on being able to identify who they belong to, who bought them, where they came from. And Victorville is the 5th most collected illegal guns in the state. Because of their efforts, they've really cracked down on making sure they get those guns, making sure the guns they can't identify where they came from are gone. So,
Thank you.
and he's going to continue to try to keep us safe here.
Good to hear. Director Roberts.
Nothing to add.
Director Snyder.
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
And I also have nothing to add. Mrs. Sevi, is there any correspondence?
Just the items in the packet. One of them didn't render properly when it moved over, so I did bring a copy of it to the meeting. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. And then review of the action items. Are there any prior meeting action items?
There were none and there are none.
Are there any current meeting action items?
No, there are none.
Thank you. And we'll set the agenda for the next meeting. Do any members of the board have any items you'd like to add to the agenda? Nope. Okay. And we will now recess to closed session at 5:50.